Recording in progress.
Welcome. The time is now 1:31, and I hereby call the August 22nd, 2023 meeting of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Now I'd like to turn this over to our director, Abby.
All right, before we get started, we have a few announcements. We have 6 members of our 7-member board present. If you feel your petition needs to be heard by the full 7-member board, please let our staff know immediately prior to your petition being read, and we will table it to the next meeting when we have all members in attendance. The Area Board of Zoning Appeals meeting is being held in person and virtually here in the 4th floor council chambers of the County City Building with Zoom video and phone teleconferencing options available as posted on our website, sjcindiana.com/agenda center. Regarding public comment, we will first ask for public comment from those sitting in the chambers, then we will call on members of the public attending remotely. If a member of the public attending remotely wishes to participate in the public comment portion, please indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by messaging the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name and your address for the record. And lastly, we ask that our board members state their name when making a motion in a second. Please silence your phone so you do not disturb the meeting. All right, Shelley, or Bob, I should say, we have appointment of board chairman. Back to you.
Do we want a roll call first,
Oh, yes.
please?
Mr. Tavernier?
Here.
Mr. Hawley?
Here?
Mr. Veldman? Mr. Ritzma?
Here.
Mr. Roush?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
6 members present.
Thank you.
Don't like me? Shirley, you get Sydney.
Mr. Schaefer, I'm sorry.
Here.
Thank you again. At this time, we need to vote the president for the president of the BZA board. And the nominations, please be open.
Lance Roush, I nominate DJ as the incoming chairman.
Any other nominations? Nominations be closed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Do we
Do we need a
need to
second?
vote individually?
Don't we need a second?
We did need a second on the nomination. I think Donnie was coming in to give that second. It was almost audible. So,
Okay.
Darnie Ritzma, a second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we need to vote individually or can we?
you can do it all in favor.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you. And we'll now turn this over to our new president and former president, DJ.
All right, we're ready to petition number 1, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Location 59851 Elm Road. Owner, Berrien Land LLC. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.182 sub C 1 to allow a front south yard building setback of 38 feet where a minimum of 40 feet would be required for the construction of a building addition to an existing commercial building. Zoning C, Commercial District, County.
Could you click on the PowerPoint, Shelley? This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff. So this first variance comes from a property that's being used as a John Deere dealership on Elm Road across from that medical campus. They're looking to do a 65-foot by 80 building addition along the west side of the existing building there. But because of the size of the addition and the northward curve of the right-of-way here on Jackson, extending that existing building 80 feet to the west will bring it less than a foot within the front yard setback. so it'll come to about 39.6 feet. There you can see the side of the building that will be added onto. There's the front yard along Jackson Road. That's kind of looking from the back. You can see the abutting medical building as well as the front yard. This is the site plan provided by the petitioner, again, with that southwestern corner of the addition being measured 39.4 feet from the front property line, which is less than the required 40 feet. Looking at state law criteria, staff finds that the proposed building addition will not be injurious to the community. This one comes down to the extent of the violation into the setback. Given the building will still be set back 39 feet from Jackson Road, granting this variance will not be injurious to drivers traveling along that path. It also will not adversely affect surrounding property values. The only neighboring property is that Elm Road Medical Campus across Jackson to the south. Given it's not residential in nature, the variance shouldn't affect the property values one way or the other. And then finally, staff finds there is adequate practical difficulty in this case, given the extensive right-of-way on Jackson. It's really not that heavily of a traveled road, and relative to the amount of traffic, we find this to be a little bit excessive, and therefore we do recommend approval of this variance. We'll take any questions you might have.
All right, you guys got any questions? No? All right, thanks, Carl. Is the petitioner present? Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. Chris Godlewski, Abbenmarsh, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend. I believe the contractor and owner might be online, Zach Kaufman and Dave Timmerman. They all represent this project as well. The staff report was very good and summarized it well. Thank you. As you can see in the history, that when the building was originally staked, with the new addition in mind that's now being proposed, was just shifted a little bit to the west, thus putting that southwest corner just into that setback, just under a foot. So not much to it. I can take any questions you have, and I hope you find that you can approve it.
Okay, thank you. You guys got any questions? No? All right, thanks, sir. All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got any questions, or I'll take a motion?
Donnie Ritzman, I'll make a motion that we approve the variance as requested. I concur with the analysis provided in the staff report.
Bob Hawley, second.
All right, motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Golly, you can't talk. Can't talk. Number two.
Petition number 2, location 51297 Grand Oaks Court. Owner William Joseph and Courtney Moran. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.070 sub C 1A2 to allow a rear north setback of 0 foot where 8 foot is required for a treehouse. Zoning R, Single Family District, County.
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So this variance concerns an accessory structure on the property shown here at the rear of the lot. Here's the structure in question. It was constructed at a 0-foot setback from the rear property line, where an 8-foot setback minimum would be required. So consequently, they are here today to try to legalize the current location of this structure. Staff recommends denial of the variance, mainly on the grounds that there's really no practical difficulty as to why the structure needs to be constructed here rather than meeting the minimum 8-foot setback. Turning to the three criteria in state law, the approval will not likely be injurious to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. It's really not even visible from the public right-of-way in any way. Turning to the second criteria, the ongoing use of the accessory structure likely will not impact the use and value of the adjacent area. The property to the north, the house on that parcel, is set back over 450 feet from the structure, and the land between the two is pretty decently wooded and screened as a result. However, it is problematic that in order to provide maintenance for this structure, the owner would effectively need to enter this neighbor's property to provide that maintenance to the rear of the structure. Turning to the final criteria, staff finds that strict application of the terms of this chapter would not result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because there's plenty of other space on the parcel in the backyard where an accessory structure could be constructed. And there are possibly other mature trees that could have been used for a tree house, which are meeting the 8-foot minimum setback. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Sean, the support for the back part of the facility, is that right on the end of the property line? Is that touch the back lot line?
It would appear that it either touches or is extremely close. When we look at the site plan provided, it's more or less at that 0-foot setback.
You don't know how many feet it would be from the mature trees, those two mature trees, to the back of the property line?
The one shown here?
Yeah,
I don't know really with any precision, no.
okay, thanks.
Sean, what's the 10-foot easement for?
That is a drainage and utility easement.
It's lot 60
Where is it?
or 80.
So it's lot 80, it's all the way over to the left.
No,
At-
no, but where's the easement? Where's the drainage?
Oh, and it's along the rear. You can see it on this site plan.
Okay.
So the drainage easement, is that for other people to use, or, you know, when you get a drainage easement, is this one controlled by the county?
It is to provide access to a county drain or a county-maintained retention pond.
It is in fact 10 foot, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, not 10 inch.
10 foot.
Yeah. All right, you guys got any other questions? No? Okay. Thanks, Sean. Is the petitioner present? Name and address in 10 minutes, if you would, please.
Good afternoon. My name is William Moran. This is my wife, Courtney. Our home address is 51297 Grand Oaks Court in Granger. I think that we can address many of these questions that asked, but first my wife has a few things to say.
I just wanted to first sort of give a little history of how we got to the point where we put the treehouse where we did. We have 6 children. Our youngest is 4, our oldest is 21. So the idea of building a treehouse in our backyard was something that we were really looking forward to, something that all of our children can do when you have this wild age span. It's not easy to do. I work full-time, my husband also works full-time and is also an active member of the reserves. And so between the two of us, we've got a pretty busy house with 3 teenage boys. And so it was something that we really just wanted to do for them, that we put a lot of thought into, including prior to building, we reached out to our HOA. We do have HOA approval for the structure. We reached out to our Realtor, who at the time advised us that there was no rear setback on the property. Our insurance company, and we've also talked to a couple of other neighbors who actually have line of sight to the treehouse. And so we started the construction, and so we really thought that we checked all of our boxes with this. And so the hope is that we can show you that there is no impact to some of the main concerns, which would be drainage. And my husband can address all of those things for you.
Actually, we've got some documents for the council, and we've got copies for everybody, if we can pass them up. Well, except for the survey, they only gave us 2 copies. But
So anything that you give us will have to stay?
Absolutely.
Okay.
These are yours to keep and hang on the refrigerator or whatnot. One is a schematic of our brand-new septic system, so enjoy. So to address Sean's comments in the staff recommendation, and by the way, Sean's been very helpful through the process, especially a lot of conversations with my wife. The first 3, we certainly agree with the first, that it's not even visible from the street, and that was intentional. And the second point about the maintenance, I would argue that no maintenance would require us to go onto our neighbor's property, because we erected the entire structure 10 feet up in the air without ever going onto their property. And that was actually at a time when there was an existing fence on our property, that since we've had the survey done for this process, we find out that they've installed a new fence, and there's even more room behind us. So it's actually not a setback of 0 feet. That rear corner on that survey that DJ's holding shows 1.75 feet from that, is the closest point that corner gets to the property line. So the rest of it, as far as the distance from the trees and the support posts, it's further than that, obviously, but I don't have those measurements.
Yeah, and the reason for the 0 setback request was because we had not received the results of
survey.
our survey yet. And so I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to ask for more once we got here.
And so, again, just to finish on the maintenance aspect, both of the sides and the front are completely accessible. And the back is still accessible, it's just a little bit tighter back there. But again, if they can build the structure, any maintenance, this thing's built better than our house. It's got a metal roof, because we know there's tree branches and stuff that falls. The maintenance should be minimal. So for item number 2, I think would argue that that's not an impact. And then for item number 3, the practical hardship, we consulted arborists numerous times. We consulted our septic, because our septic system failed inspection during the purchase of the house, so we knew we had to replace it. I have copies of the variance that we needed in order to move the septic system to the opposite side of the yard, which is that schematic that you've got there. And then reading through some past minutes from these meetings of this board, it seems like that's not uncommon, especially up in our area in Granger, for the septic system to impact where you can put certain things. And it's certainly true on our yard. It's sort of an odd-shaped parcel, and between the output from the house to the new septic tank, from the septic tank all the way to the field and to the size of the drainage field, which is the last picture in that packet that you've got there, it really impacts most of our yard. So we consulted treehouse masters, online tree building sites, really put a lot of work into it. These are quite literally the only 2 trees on the entire property, in or out of an easement, that could support a structure of this type. Because the others are either too close to the septic field where we couldn't put any support beams in, they'd be in the front yard, it would be next to the driveway. I think that septic schematic that you've got there in your hands outlines some of those trees. As you can see, there's one sort of in the bottom right corner of the new septic field that's highlighted in red. We actually had to cut a tree out just to install that septic system. So this was a very, very intentional design. We didn't realize that we were going over that drainage easement. Additionally, we've got during this process, my wife has talked to a number of people, including John Law over at the county drainage and construction board, who says there's no issue. We had HOA approval for this project. Since the treehouse has actually been installed, MetroNet, as you probably know, came through and ran their fiber straight through our backyard, directly underneath the treehouse. So they were able to run utilities through there. Since the septic system has been completed, we spent additional thousands of dollars to have the yard graded, and it's actually graded now even more further away from the adjacent property to ensure proper drainage. So to us, there's really almost no impact back there.
Yeah, and I think that the, John Law, I think copied Sean on the letter that he sent to him. He had the schematic for our property showing that there is no north drainage, so there is no drainage requirement back there on our property. And so I think, I don't know, Sean, if you have that, or if that's something that we have a copy of that email also from Mr. Law.
Yeah, I can confirm that that's the case.
And so between the two things, so the practical hardship, and we have tremendous respect for all of our neighbors. I have never met the property owner to the north of us, and I think that that's the person who is taking issue with the treehouse. And I understand, that there's some privacy concerns, or honestly don't really know what else. There's, like he said, there's 450 feet from the treehouse to their property. You can't see the house from the property. In the winter, you can see the top of their chimney, and that's the extent of it. But our children use that. There's no electronics allowed back there. They go back there and read a book. They've done homework. They've had a sleepover. It's something that's, been for our chaotic family, and with 2 cross-country moves in the year before we got here was something that we were excited to do for them, and so we're really hoping to be able to keep and maintain that.
And just to reiterate a couple points, as I see you flipping through the pictures there. On page 1, that picture is just designed to show how the trees are actually an integral part of the structure, the supports that are used there. The second page is in the blue oval there was an overhang. There was a piece of lumber that was left overhanging, and that's noted in the survey that you were handed. It says this nub overhangs the property line. The next page shows that that's actually since been removed. And so that corner is what's referenced in the survey that says it's 1.75 feet to that fence line. The next page is showing what the old fence, the neighboring property's old fence was, and you can see that it's actually on our side of the staked. 2 minutes, okay, thank you. On our side of the staked property line, and that was the fence that was referenced when we were building the treehouse, and so that whole thing was able to be built, and you can see how far off it is from the stairs and from the rear of the treehouse to where the thing could be easily maintained. And since then, that fence has actually moved back to the property line. They installed a new fence. Pages 5 and 6 are shots on May 10th, so just early spring, and that's from the top of the stairs there, so this is probably 15 feet in the air because I'm the one taking the picture. To the northeast on page 5, staring directly towards where their house is, you can't even see it. And page 6 is to the northwest, also staring into the woods, and really these just seem like wild woods to us. And then the last picture was, again, like I mentioned, just as our new septic system was going in, just showing the impact of how that dictates where we can put accessory structures on the yard. So, any questions before we?
I have. Did you have to have a whole new septic put in, or do you have 2 systems in there now?
No, sir, it's a whole new system. It failed on inspection, and when the soil analysts came out and did their samples and everything, it said, as you see on that septic diagram there, they said that area was no good, that it would likely continue to fail there, and we needed a new field, a larger field, and the only place to put it is where they did, and that's actually referenced on the variance that's, I don't know if I sent that up.
They had a variance that they had to do for where our septic field went because of the space that they needed.
And you had a new tank put in, too?
We had a new tank.
Yes,
The old
sir.
tank was crushed, the new tank was put in, and the septic field is on this side of our property over to the west.
You mentioned something about Metro coming in and putting it right by underneath the tree house.
Right,
What are
yes.
they doing? Why would they be back there?
So that's where MetroNet installed the new fiber optic that they ran throughout all of Granger through.
Oh, yeah,
Wood-
I know what you're
Okay.
talking about, but I can't understand, why would they be way in the back?
We showed up one day and they had marked the yard and they had their trucks on our street and they ran it clear across the back of our property and our neighbors to the east.
Yeah, and we mentioned that because it's a drainage and utility easement, and so with John Law saying that we had no drainage issues and utilities being able to come through, and again, we marked, anywhere that was used or dug, that there would be no impact to either drainage or utility.
Do you have any service like utilities to this tree house? Electric or
We have
gas?
an extension cord that we can run out there. But we don't have anything permanent out there.
Who built this?
A licensed general contractor, and the entire thing was built to code.
Okay.
And hopefully the pictures reflect the
When-
quality of the building.
When was it built?
It was a long process. We started it in the late summer of 2021, and we got the outside structure done, but it took us, we ran into some budget issues, and so we didn't actually finish it until early this spring. So the outside, the cedar boards and things that are on the outside, the back of the structure didn't have those yet. We had a couple things that we had to work through, including just getting the inside finished, but we had it was erected but not completed until early this year.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any questions?
Sean, you can not just verify that there was an email with John Law, but in fact, it was affirmative that there's no issues.
That's absolutely correct,
Right.
yes.
Out of your yard, what is the percentage that this septic covers?
I think that he might have the actual paper with the septic. As a percentage, I don't know. If I had to guess, I would say probably 30% of the
Certainly of the open area.
open area.
And as you can see on the septic schematic there where they noted the trees, the majority of them are also in the easement because they're really around the perimeter of the yard. And then, or they're in a place where that's a great picture right there in the driveway. That one that's straight ahead, I mean, that's a 5-inch maple. It would never facilitate if it wasn't even right next to the driveway.
Yeah, and the larger one that's kind of blocking the view of the treehouse from the front right there is something that's right next to the septic, the new tank. So they actually, they ran their equipment into that, so we had to, it's right there. And then the other side, we had to take the trees out in order to put our septic field in.
All right, you guys got anything else? Nope. No? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, we're gonna open this up to the public here. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. You wanna speak in favor of it?
In favor of it being approved.
All right, name and address, please, and you got 5 minutes.
My name is Valerie Sabo. I'm at 51290 Hidden Pines Court, Granger, Indiana. If you look at the map of the subdivision, I'm the house just to the left, where you see a swimming pool, and we are adjacent with a very small portion to Will and Courtney. There's just like a 10-foot little part, and then somebody else's property comes in at an angle. We share the back easement with Ed Hardig Sr., which is the majority of the backside. That's the part in question about the easement. And as far as I know, and we've had to do several things with, we have a swimming pool, we have requirements, we have lots of things. I've never known of there being a problem with anything at the back of the property. And we're the same situation where we have Metronet, Comcast, whatever. They come through, they do whatever they need to do. We do have a fence at the back of our property. There's one that's been in existence for quite some time. There's a second one that we put in when we moved in 31 years ago. So, and as you look, we could see it better than what anybody else could if we wanted to. And to be honest, unless we go to the back of our property and really work hard, we also can't see the structure. And we have no difficulty with the structure being there. I've also was on the HOA of the neighborhood back 31 years ago. My husband is the current HOA president of the association, and he was one of the people that approved the initial petition to put up the structure. And anytime there's a structure within the neighborhood that's put up, that's a permanent structure, it has to be approved by the neighborhood. Now, that does not supersede any county requirements or whatever. But as far as they knew, Will and Courtney, it's my understanding, at the time, there were no other requirements, aside from, obviously, you're not supposed to build it over the other person's property line. We've had, gym sets, all kinds of structures are put up. And I'm not sure why this particular structure is being looked at in a negative light if there are no problems with easement, with drainage, with anything else. So I think if anybody should have a problem with it, it should be us, and we don't. So does anybody have any questions
How long
about?
have you lived there again?
31 years.
31 years, so you bought that house brand new?
Yes.
Yeah. How about wildlife?
There's a lot of wildlife back there, all the time. It's hard to keep our hostas and our deer every day, deer, turkey, rabbit, squirrels, chipmunks, you name it, we've got it. And they were there first,
Right.
so we just accept that. Now, we do have a fenced-in area of our backyard to try to keep that down to a minimum. The back side of the property has a fence, and then we have an additional fence that's just in front of it, which we put in when we moved in because we had 2 young children, and who have since grown. But, you try to do your best to keep everybody safe and give them a place to be and be safe and do things. And I would say we've been able to do that, and I'm happy to have been able to do that.
You got 30 seconds.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
All
Okay.
right, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. I thought you were getting up. Any on Zoom? See none. Anybody that would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. Name and address, please, and you got 5 minutes.
Well, maybe you'll extend it. My name is Edward Hardig. I live with my wife Joanne at 16700 Adams Road, Granger, Indiana. We have the approximately 32 acres right behind all of what we call Woodland Hills Estates. I might remind Mrs. Szabo, when she talks to Dennis tonight, that when they moved in and our farmer's fence was back there, I think I split the cost of the new fence that's behind the Szabo property. Since we have some time, I want to get right to it. I want to point out to the board that the structure was built without permit, and they seek to allow this wrongfully built structure to remain at that site. There are 3 basic standards. Now, in the staff report, they indicated as to standard number 1 that the only impact negatively would be to the adjacent property, which is us. And it does affect our property to the north. This building is an absolute eyesore. It's a detriment to our general welfare. It's out of character with the surrounding area. It has a large extended front porch, a partial back porch, the back porch perfect for a deer stand and shooting onto our property. This was constructed and is viewable from our home. I can see it when the summer leaves fall out our bedroom window, so it is visible. Whether that's 450 feet of eyesight or not, my eye doctor would probably be delighted to hear that, but I can see it certainly from our property. Now, this as viewable as constructed has no aesthetic value or character. We already have the neighbor's yard waste. Now we're to agree on getting the neighbor's eyesore. The second standard, the use and value of the land adjacent to the property will, and as the staff report mentions, will affect our property in a substantially adverse manner. Although our house is 400 feet, we do have decks and yards. You just can't hide this. Now, as to the dimensions within the property line, yes, their constructed building, or whatever this is, did extend over onto our property. And about a week ago Sunday, I think Mr. Moran was out there with a saw cutting off those parts of the support that extended over our property line. Now, we can get the battle of the surveyors here. My surveyor shows that after this has been removed from encroaching onto our property, it's just a few inches from our building. Their surveyor, apparently, to the representations made, it's 12 inches or 8 inches or something like that. We're not talking about inches here. We're talking about building within the setback area, which is 8 feet. That's the standard. That's the standard of the zoning ordinance. Now, in regard to this second standard about being in substantially adverse manner, our property has preliminary plat approval for a subdivision known as Hawks Ridge. And this structure not only presently when causes damage to our current land value, but in reviewing this with the developers, 3 of our preliminary lots will have direct contact onto the 160 feet of the Moran property. And I have been advised that it will substantially reduce the value of those lots. Jim Rand's development, was to be present here on August the 9th. And I asked a staff member, if they would, to pass out these letters from Jim Rand's to the board. And I would like to read it into the evidence.
You got 1 minute.
Well, I'll try to read faster. If you want my wife to read it, that's fine too. Maybe Joanne, you can come up and read that after I'm through. Now, as to the third standard, a determination was made by the staff is correct. A strict application will not result in any practical difficulties. They put this up, I think, in the late winter of 21. The Rands have ample lawn area in their $1 million property to relocate this. The other point in your time that you're holding me to, this utility easement across the PAC is in fact a utility easement. There's electric, there's phone, there's Metronet, there's all these utilities back there. It comes in from Grape Road all the way extending across the property. Am I through, Mr. Chairman?
Your 5 minutes is up.
Joanne? Thank you. If you would.
Name and address, and you'll get 5
Joanne
minutes.
Hardig, 16700 Adams Road. I live with my husband, Ed. I'm not giving you my age. Okay, this letter is from Jim Rands. My name is Jim Rands. I have been a real estate developer and residential builder for many years, principally with land developments in the Granger area. I also was the contractor constructing the home where the petitioners now reside, commonly known as 51297 Grand Oaks Court. Although I am willing to attend the area board meeting scheduled for August 22nd in person, I will be out of the city on the date of your meeting. Therefore, I want to present you my comments as a remonstrator to the petition filed and referenced above. As located, the structure will adversely affect the use and value of the adjacent property. You just can't hide it. There is no land left for landscaping screening. Further, the proposed development for the Hardig property, known as Hawks Ridge, has been preliminarily approved by the Plat Commission. This structure will reduce the value of those lots. Of greatest reduction in value will be those preliminarily approved lots 12, 13, and 14.
would share the border with the petitioner's property and would have a clear visual sighting of the structure. In my opinion, the location of this structure within the setback area will affect the value of the adjacent property in a substantially adverse manner. I authorize this letter to be read at the hearing on the petition for variance, and I request that it be made a part of the board file. James Rands.
And I think we're dismissed from further comment.
Yes, sir.
How many lots are going to consist in this Hawks
I
Ridge?
think there's approximately 19.
19, thank you.
I have the plan here, but thank you. We remonstrate against this and ask that you not approve this variance.
Understand. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Name and address, and you got 5 minutes.
Edward Hardig Jr., 51633 Orchard Ridge Court, Granger, Indiana. I reside in Woodland Hills, and I am also a member of the HOA board. So there's a few points that I'd like to make. I have an email submitted on January 31st of 2022 from the Morans, where they're seeking permission to construct a tree fort that was already completed. So they didn't seek permission from the HOA board to build it until it was after constructed.
That's not true.
The covenants,
Sorry, ma'am.
the covenants do not allow the HOA board to approve any structure that's already been constructed. They do not. They give us plenty of leeway in terms of enforcement of the covenants, but no way to approve a structure that's already been constructed. The structure itself, pursuant to the covenants of Woodland Hills, is in violation of 5 of the restrictive covenants. And Mr. Sabo, who's been in the subdivision for 31 years, at a recent HOA meeting, I asked him if he ever remembers a tree fort in the entire Woodland Hills subdivision since he's lived there, and he said no. And that's because a tree fort is not allowed in Woodland Hills. It is against the covenants. Questions for me?
Ed, it would seem that if it was in violation of the HOA, that the HOA would be taking action. Is it?
At this time, the HOA is not taking any action, but it may take action.
Right, I mean, that's usually the recourse that I've seen.
The structure itself is, one of the violations of the covenants is that you can't have any permanent structure within the rear 10 feet where the utility easement is. Nobody else in the subdivision has a permanent structure in the rear 10 feet.
I don't know if this is a question for Ed or for the board member. I'm confused on that 10-foot situation. Some people refer to it as a utility easement, and some of you refer to it as a drainage easement. Is it a utility easement?
It's a utility and drainage easement. It's both.
It's a utility and drainage easement.
That's correct.
So if the I&M needed to come through, they could come through, they got 10 feet to work with.
Correct.
They would have essentially 20 feet, right? Because it's 10 feet on both sides of the property line?
I don't have,
I would remind the board members, the questions for the staff should be reserved for non-public hearing time.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, Ed. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
No? Okay, sorry. Thank you.
were you asking him? I apologize if you were asking him.
I think we'll
I was
skip that
asking
until
both
we
of you.
get back.
Whoever had the
Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? Yeah, give me 1 second. Seeing none. All right, the public portion is now closed. You can have a rebuttal, and you've got 5 minutes.
So I appreciate all the questions about the easement because I'd like to focus on that. That seems to be the issue at the zoning board variances. We're asking for a variance of what we've understood to be either a drainage or utility easement. And I think we've shown, based on the different schematics and the different pictures, that there is no impact on that. An impact of some future unplanned housing development. I mean, if we move that structure back 6 feet, or 6.5 feet, or 7.5 feet, that's changing dramatically the value, because at that point, there would be no discussion of that. I'd also like to submit these photos that show the unkept wild woods that are behind us, including multiple half-dozen trees that have fallen onto our property line because it's not maintained. After this zoning violation was filed by the Hardigs, and they came through and installed a new fence, they clear-cut on their side of the fence by 10 feet. I have copies for the entire board. There are brush piles throughout, just piled along the back of it. So 450 feet to their house, and they can see our treehouse. Our bedroom window, since we're talking about bedroom windows, is probably 75 feet to the back to these berms. And you'll see there on those pictures, you'll see the piles and piles of brush and dead logs and dead trees that fall over, fall onto our yard. The last picture there are pictures of dead logs that are still in our yard to this day, if you want to go see them. Because they didn't feel like removing them. And those piles of brush are what we get to look at. That's what impacts our property value on our $1 million property that my wife and I worked very hard on. We got red tagged while I was at reserve duty for the Marine Corps in June. And that's what I got the frantic phone call from my wife about what is going on. So we worked very, very hard. I appreciate the value of their property as well as ours. Those first pictures are their brand new fence that they installed. And whether we want to talk about our survey versus their surveyor, that's their surveyor's stake, and that's our surveyor's stake on page 1. Both of the surveyor's stakes are on their side of the fence, meaning their fence is on our property line, just like their old fence was. So they can put their fence right up to our property. They clear cut all their stuff. They don't maintain the woods. And we're talking about a utility or drainage setback easement, not...
Yeah, and we have two other neighbors that border with the Hardigs, and Valerie already spoke, and the other one, I think, was trying to join on Zoom. I don't know if he was able to. And he's lived there for 26 years, and in 26 years has not one time, not once, seen Mr. Hardig on his property. They have never met because they don't use this property back there. And I understand that it's their property and they can do whatever they want with it. But when we built this, our children, we didn't know that there was a home back there. So of the people who have enjoyed this, they have a grandson named Jacob, who's a good friend of our son, Daniel. They go to Ball State together. Jacob comes over frequently and is in our treehouse. And so there's a lot of, I think fuzzy area with that, but sort of the assessment that we've been not following rules. We truly thought that what we were doing was right. We did something that we thought was fun. And I apologize to the Hardigs for any stress that this is causing them. And I've spoken, all of my children know that if we leave here today with a denial, that they are to shake Mr. Hardig's hand, that they are to say, how are you doing, and have a great day. And there will be we have no issues. We respect the decision of the board. But in this case, it's not like we built a shed or we're not making loud noise. We're not using this as a verbo property. This is a tree house for our children. And so I would ask
And
the
certainly
board,
not an eyesore. It's built to the highest quality construction. If the cedar planking, which is more expensive than normal lumber, needs to be stained a color that is more consistent with the trees, if there's things like that, I mean, it's...
And if there's 19 properties going on this new one, I guarantee you that there's going to be 19 families moving in there that are going to want to be friends with our kids and come hang out in the treehouse, and they'd be welcome to.
Yeah. And again, at a variance hearing for drainage or utilities, I think like that, we just have to focus on that. It's like, we don't impact those things that impact the Hardig's property or their ability to develop it in the future. So, thank you for the extra time.
Thank you.
All right. You guys got any questions?
Questions for staff now, or?
Yep.
I would like to ask the staff, has you're asking for a denial, or your recommendation is denial?
That is our recommendation, correct?
Has that changed in any way?
That's our recommendation based on information available prior to the public hearing.
Thank you.
Sean, given the size of the building, which I'm estimating somewhere between 235 plus or minus, would that normally require a building permit?
Yeah, so anything over 120 square feet requires a building permit.
Just as a matter of recentering, we're really talking about a site setback, not
Correct.
the
This
easement
has
just
nothing-
happens to be there.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
right.
This decision has nothing
It's
to
a
do with
setback
the
issue.
easement.
If nobody else has got anything, I'll take a motion.
Well, one of the concerns that I have is, and let's make no mistake about it, I would love to have this treehouse in my backyard. But when you got a platted subdivision that is going to be adjacent to that with 3 lots. So I think the question I always try to ask myself, when that gets platted and built, am I going to be willing to give a 0 lot line or a 0 lot variance to somebody who wants to build another accessory structure back up to the property line? Now, do I know whether that's going to happen or not? Do I think I don't know whether it'll happen. But then you've got a whole new set of issues and concerns being raised neighbor to neighbor. That's my biggest concern with this one.
Guys, got any other discussion?
Bob Hawley, I'm going to make a motion. I have some problems before I suggest. One is the utility easement. One is the setback, like Tom mentioned. The other is a subdivision that's going to be built someday. It's going to be built there someday, and it's going to raise its ugly head. And how are we going to resolve it? I won't be around then, but I'm going to make a motion that we deny it. Bob Hawley.
Tom Byers, I second the motion.
Mr. Ritzma?
Lead off.
No.
Mr. Roush? This is to deny.
I have a lot of the same thoughts that Bob has. And also the age-old issue that we face oftentimes here, where, because you've got one of the coolest tree houses I've ever seen on HGTV, it makes you feel like, oh man, it's already there, it's awfully nice. And as I want to apologize on behalf of 2 realtors here for what your realtor told you, I think I'm gonna have to say yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
I'm going to say yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes?
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
So I got a couple things, if everybody will hear me out. My vote right now does not matter, right? But, or doesn't really have any bearing on it. But I did want to bring up a couple issues, right? The realtor is the one person that cannot tell you yes or no on what's happening, what you can do with your property line and all of that, right? 2, as a licensed general contractor and a builder, I find it hard to believe that your licensed general contractor that you guys used didn't know that they had to pull a permit for this and didn't know that they were in any kind of utility easement. On the flip side of that, I do see your difficulty with the amount of yard that you lost due to your septic. I also agree that if it was an HOA issue, that they would have taken action by now, right? So that's on them. And so my vote here is no, but unfortunately, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, denies your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thanks, everybody. Number 3.
Location, unaddressed 72 plus or minus acre parcel on the north side of Johnson Road to the west, north, and east of 30211 Johnson Road. Owner, Theodore and Nancy Nespajani. Requested action, variance from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 4 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required for a lot in a 1 lot and 1 outlot subdivision. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. This is the parcel in question right here. It's 72 acres plus or minus. It currently has enough acreage and road frontage that it could be split by right into 2 buildable lots. But in this case, rather than do that, the petitioner would like to split off 4 acres to build a house and then put the remaining balance into an unbuildable outlot. This better serves the goals of the agricultural district in that it doesn't force them to split off an additional 16 acres that they don't need that would very likely fall into disuse, therefore. And there you see where the proposed lot is going in that that southeast corner there by that existing house, and then the rest of it is going into that proposed outlot. Staff finds that the approval would not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare because it will not result in the establishment of a additional potential for residential use in the agricultural district beyond what exists by right. We find that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner by allowing for the larger outlot rather than splitting off a full 20 acres. This helps to ensure that that 16 acres continues to be farmed. And we find that the strict application of the terms of this chapter will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. In this case, strict application would force them to split off the 20 acres when they don't need that 20 acres, and it's better to keep the cultivated land together as much as possible, and that still would fulfill their intent of building a new home on the property. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Does anybody got anything? No? Is the petitioner here? Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. Chris Godlewski, Abbenmarsh, 315 West Jefferson Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana, 46601. Yeah, this is a proposed 2-lot minor. It's in an agricultural zone. In order to get that second lot, which is less than 20 acres, you have to go through the lot size variance. And the one thing to help assure that this land pattern stays the same, 2 sequential 4-acre lots, one that's already there and one's proposed. The outlot will be unbuildable. So hopefully that's a good surety that this is kind of a last development. And this is a family farm. It's between a father and a son. So it's going to be a family setting with that new proposed buildable lot. And it's ample size to house driveway, outbuilding, septic, well, and have plenty of room. So I can answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have anything? No? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
We'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got any questions, or I'll take a motion?
Donnie Ritzma, I'll make a motion that we approve the variance.
Bob Hawley, second that.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts.
Thank you. I just want you to know Tom Byers is a wonderful human being. I used to work for him, so, yeah.
Hey, unless
It's
you're
on
gonna
the
say
record.
something nice about all of us, we don't need any shout outs.
In the minutes, right?
Thanks, though. All right, number 4.
Location, 56460 Francis Street. Owner, Jeremy G. Moore. Requested action, variance from section 154.070 sub C1D1A to allow for a 6-foot solid privacy fence with less than 70% open space in the front west yard of a property where 3-foot would be permitted. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
This is Carl Brown Grimm, Area Plan Commission staff. So the petitioner in this case is looking to allow for a 6-foot privacy fence in a portion of the front yard of their property. The petitioner was repairing an existing privacy fence that encloses their pool when it was red tagged by a building department inspector. The pool and the old fence have been present in the front yard since at least 1986. This is a view of the new fence on the property. It doesn't enclose the entire front yard. There's actually hedges on the other side of the front, but it does provide privacy for the pool. Fences are common in the neighborhood on Francis Street surrounding this property. There are examples of neighbors in conformance with the ordinance, utilizing what appears to be a 4-foot open fence in the front yard abutting Francis Street. However, there are also examples of neighbors just on that street that also have the 6-foot privacy fence along Francis Street. This is the site plan that's submitted, showing the privacy fence again will only be present in the north section of the front yard, serving its purpose for providing privacy for the pool area. So when we go to state law criteria, staff feels that the approval will not be injurious to the welfare of the community. This is evidenced by the fact that the fence has existed in the yard for over 40 years, at least, and has never had any complaints down there. Further, the use and value of the surrounding area will not be adversely affected. The fence was likely less visibly pleasing prior to the repairs. And then there are also at least 3 examples of other fences similarly in size and open space along Francis Street. The third criteria is where it gets difficult for staff. Ultimately, we could not reach the conclusion that there is practical difficulties in the use of this property. I think there is an argument there that the pool may play a role in necessitating some extra level of privacy. But what it comes down to is the neighbors, there are plenty of examples of neighbors that did follow the ordinance. And in this case, staff does recommend denial only on the grounds of practical difficulty not being met. And I will take any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions?
Do you have any way of knowing some of those fences that are, say, 6 foot? How long they been there?
They've been there similar, I would say similar times since 80s, 90s, from what I've seen on the historic aerials. It's hard to tell from looking straight down.
Well, you can almost tell by how deteriorated
look.
they are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Was this just one of the random things the building department did, run around and look for fences?
I'm not sure how they found that one.
I'm glad Randy left.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else got anything? No? All right. Is the petitioner present? All right, name and address in 10 minutes.
My name's Jeremy Moore. My address is 56460 Francis. It's Avenue. I don't know why they put street. It's different at each ends of the road. The fence has been there majority of my life. I mean, we moved in '86. It's always been there. All the neighbors have known it. All I was doing is restructuring it. You know, they had some issues. I was trying to make it better, safer. You know, the fence is there for the safety of surrounding neighbors and myself, my kids. You know, there is an in-ground pool that is surrounding. That's the only place it goes around is the in-ground pool. The remaining area of the property is surrounded by 6-foot chain link fence, because I do have dogs too. You can see into my yard from, there's alleyway, the east and south. So if anybody needs to see in my yard for whatever reason, they can see everything. It's, I don't understand why it's being denied. I understand that there's a 4-foot law for in-ground pool. So St. Joe County says 3 foot, and it's gotta be 70% visibility, so I don't know how you go about that. But my request is that I get to keep my fence. I did go through, I walked up and down the neighborhood, and I asked my neighbors. I have signatures, phone numbers. Majority of those pictures that you showed of the surrounding neighbors with their fences, they are on this, and they all said that you're more than welcome to call. That's all I have is my dad. I have pictures of him in that pool with the fence from, 30 years ago. And you guys can see that if you want. That fence has been there for a very long time. All I wanted to do is make it safer for myself and my kids and the neighbors. I couldn't live with myself if somebody came into my yard and something happened to them falling into that pool. And I truly believe a 4-foot fence to me is not safe enough. That's all I have. My dad here, if he would like to speak. He is the previous owner. I purchased the house from him about a year ago, a little over, or almost 2 years ago.
How long has this property been in your family?
I bought the,
Name and address.
my name is Greg Moore, and I live at 52681 Buckeye Road, just down on the other side of Penn High School. I lived in this home, me and my wife, and I raised my kids at Francis Avenue since '86. When I moved in, that fence was there around that property from the previous owners. They had that pool put in 74. When I moved in, the fence was deteriorating, and I had neighborhood kids breaking the panels off trying to get into the pool. So at that point, I told my wife, we're gonna replace that, because I wouldn't be able to live with myself if somebody came in the yard and drowned it. I hear about it all the time, and I'm very, very adamant about safety. You can ask my kids, my grandkids, or anybody that knows me. I guess it's my fault. When we went to I helped him put it back up, redo it, because it was starting to do the same thing. And I wanted it to be safe for his kids and the neighborhood kids. And that's the only reason we replaced it the way we did. I didn't I lived there, I didn't get any notice about any changes. I didn't get anything in the mail or anything, you know, what was changing. So it's my fault that we did what we did to try to make it safe.
Thank you.
So I got a couple questions. Not that it matters what kind of dogs they are, but on a portion of this fence, it looks like it's, I don't know, maybe 6, 8, 10 inches above the ground. Is there anything that's in that spot now that?
The pool area
Yeah.
has chain link fence inside too, so my dogs do not go in the pool area unless I'm in there. But they're American Bulldogs, so they're 120 pounds, 110 pounds.
So the fence essentially was just there for privacy from day one?
Yeah,
And the reason why you have.
and safety.
The reason why you have,
I need you to.
the reason why you have a gap at the one end is because there's railroad ties around the outside and it's sinking. It's sinking, it sank about maybe 2 to 3 inches, and that's gonna be filled in. We just haven't got that far because he works a lot of hours, and I'm taking care of a property with 44 acres, and we're trying to work everything in.
It took me about 2 months to do it because I broke a foot, I put a nail through the other one, not doing this, doing something different. I've been in and out of the hospital for kidney stones, like nonstop for the last 3 years. So it was a little rough, but it took me about 2 months. A lot of the neighbors came over and they really liked it. I mean, the neighbor next door, I put up a privacy fence at the back of his house because he didn't like it up front there. So, you know, he had a 20-foot mulberry tree right next to his house, and I offered to cut it down and put the fence up at the back of his yard for him. He's got holes in his fence that I'm gonna take my old fence panels and replace the broken panels that he has.
The swimming pool, is that in operation?
Yes.
Does it function?
Yes. It's a Goodnight swimming pool, so it's concrete, it's not a liner.
All right, you guys got anything else? Tom, anything? No?
Not at this
All right.
time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Anybody who would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none, public portion is now closed. You guys got any questions, or I'll take a motion?
Can I ask staff a question?
Sure.
Just because I don't know what the ordinance states. Had this fence been, well, let me ask it a different way. Where does the front yard and the backyard start? At the beginning of the house and the end of the house? Yeah, I guess my question was, if this were an extension of the chain link fence going across the property in a north-south direction, would it be permitted by right, or would he still require a variance?
So the front yard comes, well, fences are considered the front yard between the front of the building and the street. So in that scenario, it would still not be permitted.
Okay.
At 5
Thank
feet,
you.
basically.
The only other comment I had, Mr. Chairman, was the fact that I think the property two properties to the north is a similar fence, also protecting a swimming pool. So at some point, we need to probably treat both of these the same way as Bob indicated earlier. Maybe we all won't be around when that comes up and that fence gets replaced, but it did appear there's another pool there.
You got anything? No. Anybody else got anything? I'll take a motion.
Bob Hawley, I'll make a motion My thinking is the fence has been there many, many years. And I can understand the concern for, you just couldn't live with yourself if something terrible happened. My motion is to approve the request for the property located at 56460 Francis Street, Penn Township, St. Joe County.
Donnie Ritzma, I'll second. And the basis for my approval of the variance is I don't agree with the 3-foot or even a 4-foot height of the fence requirement for an ornamental or open style of a fence. I don't believe that would be very safe. It needs to be enclosed and higher up for people not to be able to climb over to get into an in-ground pool, because the whole purpose of having that fence is for safety purposes, to keep kids from climbing over and drowning potentially, because it's at grade level. The pool is at grade level. So I approve the variance. Second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
To approve or to deny?
The motion was for, I'm sorry, what
There's
was,
a motion and a
Motion.
second to approve it.
To approve it, okay.
Yeah.
to approve the variance? Yes, I vote yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. Sorry, Bob. All right. Number 5.
Location, 110 Pine Street, and one unaddressed parcel to the north of 110 Pine Street, Lot 76 of Osceola Place Pro, and 3 unaddressed parcels to the north of 110 Pine Street, Lot 72 through 74 of Osceola Place Pro. Owner, Robert Tashan, John Tashan, Alexandria Wilkins, Andrea Tashan, and Annalisa Tashan. Requested action, variance number 1, from section 4.03 sub K to allow a rear yard setback of 32 feet where 40 feet is required for an existing building. Variance number 2, from section 4.03 sub K to allow a 0-foot front north setback where 20 feet is required for an existing parking area. Variance number 3, from section 4.03 sub K to allow a 0-foot front west setback where 20 feet is required for an existing parking area. Number 4, from section 8.03 sub B to not provide type A perimeter yard landscaping along the west, north, and east property lines. Number 5, from section 8.04 sub A to not provide foundation landscaping along the west and north facades of an existing building. Variance number 6, from section 8.06 sub B to not provide off-street parking screening landscaping for an existing parking lot. Variance number 7, from section 8.05 sub C to not provide off-street parking island within an existing parking area. And variance number 8, from section 11.06 sub A to allow 20 off-street parking spaces where a minimum of 76 spaces are required. Special use, a banquet hall in the OB Office Buffer District per section 4.08. Zoning, OB Office Buffer District, Osceola.
Yes, thank you, Shelley. This is Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So this is a special exception use petition for an event center within the town of Osceola. So on that, you'll be making a recommendation to the town council. It also comes to you with 8 variances, which you will either grant or deny today. Here's a look at the property here. This summer, the tenants recently started marketing it as an event center for small weddings, baby showers, bridal showers, that sort of thing. Once we actually learned of this through Osceola's code enforcement. They informed us of the situation. We then informed the petitioner that they would need a special exception use in order to do that in the R1 residential district. And they did submit their application to do that in a timely manner. The variances are because, although it's kind of like a change of use, there is something in Osceola's zoning ordinance that provides that upon getting a special use, it needs to be brought into conformance with all the other development standards of that district and for special uses within that district. So here's the existing building on the property. It does kind of lend itself well to the sort of use in mind. Here's the existing parking area. If it's approved, they would need to actually, stripe it and provide the minimum number of spaces. As you can see, that green area there is actually within the right-of-way, so the parking lot goes right up to the edge of the right-of-way. This is the property to the east. There is an existing fence there on that resident's property. And this is kind of the parking that's proposed here. They found that they can accommodate 20 spaces on site. We'll turn first to the special exception use. Staff finds that unfortunately, given the parking limitations and the inability of the site to provide the requisite screening of the uses, we feel that the special exception use should be denied. We feel that based on these restraints, it won't be able to contain the adverse impacts that are not harmonious with the surrounding residential neighborhood. Going through the full state criteria, we find that the proposed use will not be injurious to community moral standards or general welfare. However, without some sort of written commitment that limits the amount of people that can attend one of these events, the limited amount of parking could affect public safety and convenience because it would essentially necessitate that people would park in the public right-of-way or elsewhere. We find that the proposed use could injure or adversely affect the use of the adjacent area or property values therein. This is especially true if there aren't any written commitments that affect both the size of these events that are being conducted and the hours of operation. The proposed use is actually, Yes, so it is a use that the zoning ordinance identifies as being appropriate in the R1 single-family district. Otherwise, it wouldn't allow it as a special use. But under the current circumstances, staff is concerned that the close proximity to single-family as well as parking limitations and screening limitations will not be within character of that district. The proposed use is not incompatible with the comprehensive plan. It actually calls for everything south of Rogers Street to be commercial. In reality, the only commercial uses that really developed are those that are immediately adjacent to Lincoln Way. Therefore, the majority, once you get north of Lincoln Way, is all zoned residential, with the exception of these properties, which are zoned office buffer district. For these reasons, staff recommends denial of the special exception use. We do think that if you were to present this to the town council with a favorable recommendation, we would like to see that conditioned on written commitments that limit the size of events and the hours of operation. I think that the applicant is amenable to this based on what they have in this rental contract that they've provided. Of course, this will come with a bit of a burden in terms of enforcement, so the town would really be in the best position to decide if that's something that they want to take on. But I think without those written commitments, it would be inappropriate to allow this use here. All right, let's turn to the first set of variances. The first three variances are essentially legalizing what's already on the property in terms of setbacks. That being the 32-foot rear setback for the existing building, the 0-foot front setback for the parking area, actually two 0-foot front setbacks for the existing parking area. Staff recommends approval of these variances on the condition that the special exception use is granted. Because essentially this is just legalizing what's already on site. It's not going to have any further adverse impact, not in itself, as long as the use is well contained within the structure and limited. And there is practical difficulty in strict application because it would compel the property owner to tear up existing parking or tear down the existing building. Turning to the fourth variance, this is to not provide the type A perimeter yard landscaping along the west, north, and east property lines. Staff would support a revised request to not provide it along the west and north property lines. These are the property lines where development pretty much goes right up to the property line, such that there's not really space to provide this screening. However, we would condition that on the minimum amount of trees that would be required to be planted elsewhere on site. In this case, that comes out to 5 trees. Furthermore, we find that the petitioner can meet the screening for the east property line, which is along that white fence that I showed you earlier. This next set of variances are landscaping related to parking. Staff recommends approval of these. Again, there's practical difficulty in the parking lot going all the way up to the right-of-way such that it would be difficult to provide the screening without tearing up the parking lot. Again, with the foundation landscaping, it's pretty much paved right up to the facade, so there's practical difficulty there. In terms of providing the off-street parking islands, the zoning ordinance seems a bit excessive when it comes to this regulation. They require 1 parking area island for every 10 spaces, which in the county, it's actually only 30, so we do feel that there is practical difficulty in complying with this, especially when it would warrant tearing up a lot of the existing parking, which is already limited for the intended use. So we would recommend approval on the condition that the hours of operation are restricted via a written commitment. This would, in some ways, prevent the need for the screening of the parking area in that headlights would be less of a factor. And again, we would condition this along with all the variances on town approval of the special exception use. Turning to the 8th variance request, this is from the 76 spaces that are required down to 20. Staff would support this on a written commitment that limits the number of attendees at an event. In doing so, it kind of makes it more like a fixed seating General Assembly use rather than an open space one. And in that case, Osceola's ordinance only requires 1 parking space per 5 seats. So if you think of it that way, as long as they're providing as long as they're providing at least 1 parking space per 5 attendees they would permit, then it would be meeting that analogous standard. So staff would recommend this on the condition of that written commitment and on town council approval of the special exception use. So I will recap all of that after the petitioner has time to speak and the public hearing.
All right, you guys got any questions?
More now. Has the town weighed in on this at all yet?
They have not expressed any official position.
How many does the event center hold?
Well,
Well, I mean, there's fire marshal that makes the rules on that sort of stuff.
we'll see what the petitioner has to say on that.
Hang on one second.
It appeared as though there was some disrupted soil. Did they just get a new well or septic put in? Could you tell? Was that,
The septic was inspected.
It was from the inspection.
okay. Was there any reason you could figure, Sean, why more, I mean, they've got these extra 2 lots to what appear to be the south? Yeah. Was there any discussion with the petitioner with regard to paving some of that?
It really depends on where the septic is located. It might
It appears to be
to the north.
to the
Yeah,
northeast of
yeah.
the shed.
It's possible.
That's not correct. I sent,
Hang on,
okay,
hang on
sorry.
one second.
Okay. So no discussion?
No.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Name and address, and you got 10 minutes.
Thank you. Tanya Thompson, 58393 Westleaf Manor Boulevard, Elkhart. I have prepared a short PowerPoint presentation to let you know a little bit about me and my business partner, who couldn't be here today because she is on her honeymoon in Colorado, actually. And to give you a little bit more of an idea of the scope and scale of what we're trying to do here. But I do want to mention a few other things before I get into, I guess I can introduce myself. I am the founder and former owner of Adore Decor at 3019 Lincoln Way East in Mishawaka. I think Mr. Tavernier is aware of my operation of a business somewhat because that's next door to his construction company. I did sell that June 1st. And so I haven't been the owner since then, so don't hold me responsible for anything since then. But I was the owner of that. I opened that home decor and furniture store. And then I have a master's degree in education, and the reason that I say that, I was in education for 25 years prior to the home decor store and now the event hall. But I opened and operated several large child care centers prior to, in the past, serving 75-plus families. And through that, I was responsible for identifying and following state and local rules and regulations. I wrote policies regarding those local rules and regulations and made sure that I enforced them with staff and that sort of thing. I, had to follow rules regarding capacity, health and safety rules. There's many health and safety rules related to operating a child care center. I interacted with the fire marshal, the health department, state licensing, national accreditation, federal food program, all kinds of local and state. So my previous work experience shows a clear and strong commitment and willingness to follow rules and regulations, because the issue here is that to enforce the capacity, we are proposing to have 60 guests at any one time, no more than 60 guests in the facility. And so our willingness to enforce that is very strong. I have enforced policies and rules, throughout my career. I've managed large events before at the store, at the child care programs, including large fundraising dinners and events, and as well as for church. We took over this space June 1st, and it had sat empty for 10 years. It was being used as a storage unit, basically, for the owners. It was the owner's mother's belongings, deceased mother's belongings. Sort of looked like a hoarder situation in there. It was full of furniture, everything you can think of. My business partner and I had it cleared out and cleaned within 4 weeks. And you can actually, Abrianna Underwood is my business partner. She's the owner of Abe Signs Designs. So just to give you an idea of who she is, and yeah, if you want to advance for me, I'm not sure I will advance this slide correctly. So this is the design that we have put together. We've continued to work on it since getting the code enforcement letter because it's sort of do or die at this point. We have to be ready to generate revenue if we do get approved. But when we got the code enforcement letter on June 28th, we immediately ceased operating a business in terms of we had bookings, 2 high revenue bookings for that next weekend that were $600 each. We canceled those bookings because we understood that, you know, we needed to get to apply for these, the special exception use and the variances. So I think I had 2.5 days to figure out what a special exception use is. We were under the impression that it was zone commercial. I guess I wasn't clear on what office buffer meant. So that's why we, you know, started putting together the business without, we weren't aware of that. What was I going to say? June 28th. So I applied for the special exception use. I've been working very closely with Sean about the variances because he made me aware of those. I guess I'm confused on the variance for the trees on the east property because east property line, because I don't have a problem doing that. There's a little bit of confusion. We started with 9 variances and we went down to 8. I don't think that's the one that was taken off, but I don't have a problem doing that. I would also like to say we've invested $10,000 into this interior. As you can see, it's high-end design. Our plan is for it to be high-end events, small events, baby showers, bridal showers, birthday parties, small weddings. We think we won't get a lot of weddings with it being limited to 60 guests. So it's mostly baby showers, bridal showers, low-key events like that. I've also spoken with the town councilman, Joseph Nels, and he approached me. And we had a great conversation, and he expressed to me that he's very supportive of it, that he's very excited about it, that he would like to see the space used and not rot for another 10 years, and he can't really see what other use there could be for it because it was a banquet hall in the past. I don't know how long ago, prior to 10 years ago, I believe it was operated as a banquet hall. And that's the other reason why I assumed that it would be appropriate for a banquet hall because it is designed for that, which I will show you on my slides. I attended the town council meeting, Osceola Town Council meeting on August 8th to provide more information to them about our plans. I felt I got a very warm reception there. I have spoken with many neighbors. My neighbor that is directly adjacent to the east with the white fence, Patty and Bob Haddon, appear very supportive. She came over, came in the venue, I showed her, she thought it was great. She said events have always been her passion, and their only concern is their fence being damaged. And they told me they are planning to plant arborvitaes in front of that fence, which we could do instead. I don't have a problem with that. Ken and Debbie Williams live in the ranch next to them, so to the northeast. They are very supportive. They come over every day. How's it going? Have you had the hearing yet? They plan to be at the town hearing if you approve it. They've offered to help with things. Jennifer O'Brien and Chris Brenneman of Lamport Street have offered to help. They've shared Facebook posts. They went and looked at our old Facebook posts and shared those about the business being there. I've talked to Lori and Rob Burke on Erie Street, Rachel and Jack McLean on Lamport, and Kathy and Nick Bachman on Chestnut. There's a lot of buzz in the air about it, and people are really excited about it.
You got 3 minutes.
Okay, so let's quickly go through the slides then. So as I said, we're asking for a special exception use for banquet hall. It's currently office buffer, baby showers, bridal showers, birthday parties, and small weddings with a minimum of 60 guests. This is just some of the facility venue features, just to see what we're looking at. This is the layout right now. There's only 9 tables. That's 2 chairs and a little end table and some seating. There's some seating areas, small dance floor, small kitchen, and 2 bathrooms. We are near other commercial businesses, including bars. Trevi's is adjacent to us. There's a green garage in between us, but Trevi's is behind that. 1,900 square feet, it's ADA accessible, the 2 working restrooms, and then the small kitchen would just be used for pre-cooked food only. We are not going to provide any food or beverage service, so guests can bring in their own pre-cooked food or have it catered in, and then all the food would need to be removed, any leftovers. Alcohol will only be provided by licensed contractors only. We are not going to provide alcohol. We do not have a license for that. So the guests will have to contract with someone who has a catering license, or we can help them do that. Again, we don't expect alcohol for baby showers, bridal showers, that sort of thing, and we'd be willing to say no alcohol to those events, but with weddings, that's a little difficult. I have had the septic tank inspected and in good working condition. I do have one copy of that report if you're interested in it. And then here is the proposed parking lot, no existing changes to the structure. I thought we added one parking spot to go to 21, but 20 would be fine with me as well. And we do believe, and those parking spots do meet the town code for size and spacing. We believe that's sufficient for 60 guests, as Sean mentioned. And I looked at the town restaurant requirement of 3 guests per spot, and we meet that. And then I thought we were at 9 shade trees to be planted. I'm not sure if we're at 5 or 6 now after reading the analysis, but we don't have a problem with planting shade trees anywhere that's needed to be. In terms of traffic hazards, we are on the corner of Pine and Rogers, very low traffic area, adjacent to the park, and there's a stop sign at the corner of our property, so very slow traffic. And then the last slide is in terms of security. Clients must sign a contract and pay a security deposit. Their security deposit will be forfeited if there's any issues with neighbors, the neighboring properties, anything like that, if they don't follow any of the rules and regulations. We are going to install security cameras on the interior and exterior. We will have a police security guard required for any events with alcohol. And then what I've been told and I understand is that the Osceola Police Department is moving in across the street at the old fire department, which is...
About 30 seconds.
Okay. The police department is moving into the building directly diagonal of us. They could see everything that's going on, so that's an additional level of security that makes me feel real comfortable, and I welcome that, so.
Anybody got any questions? I've got so many.
It's a lot. The variances I don't quite understand, or,
Well, yeah, we're all sympathetic to that, and there's just things that you run into, and it's unfortunate that you didn't do this due diligence before you took the property over, but here we are. With regard to my question that I had for Sean earlier, you own those other 2 lots to the south. Notwithstanding engineering requirements and islands and retention ponds and all that business, could some or all of that space be used for overflow parking?
The
I mean,
septic,
that seems to take care of a lot of the problems.
Yeah, I submitted a new site development plan. The septic is located on the south part, right in front of the building. I think I have that. What's that? You need that back? Yeah, it's not north, well,
There's along Lincoln Way.
it's located on the south in front of the building. I do have that site development plan, but I'm not finding it for some reason.
Well, the bottom line is if you added a parking spot, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, now we need to add either dry wells, drainage, we gotta have some sort of a retention pond or some sort of dry wells, and then we're gonna have to completely restructure the entire
And account
parking.
for setbacks,
Yeah, I mean, you'd have
Also,
to,
it's triggering a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and
Parking,
it's
you're-
really hard to say. Is that really preferable for the neighbors to have more parking in their backyard? I don't know. I mean, it might be better just to restrict the.
and at 20 spots, or I'm sorry, yeah, 20 spots, and you mandated 5 people per spot, right?
That's what the ordinance would
And-
say for
and
fixed
she just
seats,
agreed
right?
to no
Right.
more than 60 guests, so, I mean, we've essentially solved that problem, so.
And we are not in a position to put in an entire new parking lot. No.
Is street parking allowed along there?
I don't believe so.
Joseph Nell said he believes that it probably is. He said he's
Is
going to
it?
get back with me about that.
Okay,
but-
I know they're
but I
touchy
haven't.
about that there.
I know, I was very surprised to hear him say that.
All right, so, anybody else got anything?
Go ahead.
how many events are you anticipating, a week, a month?
Good question. On the weekends, we are only going to have one event at a time, one larger event. If there's 60 people, we don't want to have to manage 2 large events, on a Saturday or Sunday. We might have a small one. We have a home health care group that is asking, or has expressed interest in renting the space for a bingo, a couple hours of bingo for their clients to have, do some fun events like that. We have a church youth pastor who's interested in renting it 2 nights a week for play practice for their youth plays at the church. So one event per day would be the most norm on the weekend days. And I would say the same thing for during the week. I don't expect us to have a lot of events during the week. I don't expect, I don't think that's a typically busy time. So I would say very few during the week. And we're hoping to have an event every Saturday and Sunday, but not more than one in most cases each day.
So are you planning on, in your contract, specifying that there is no on-street parking and that they have to park in your parking lot? Or how are you going to control the right now, we're just gonna forget that he said that he thinks that it's okay, and we're just gonna go
Right.
with.
Right, so yes, it does say in the contract that the guests will be given instructions on where to park, and I can state that out much more clearly in the contract. But yes, they need to park in the parking lot. I'm not interested in them parking along the street except for potentially the west lawn. There's a house on the northwest corner and then the house to the west. There's a big area of lawn in between them. And I feel like, and also the town has used this property for parking for the Bluegrass Festival for 10 years. And I was there this past, it was 2 weekends ago, and taking a look at how people park. They park along that area right there. They've parked on the grass, on the lawn. We're not going to allow that. But the town has used that property for parking for the Bluegrass Festival for 10 years, and according to the landlord, never had an issue with, being hazardous or anything like that. So I might be open to using a little bit of that lawn, but aesthetically, I would rather not, or not lawn, but along, off-street parking along that side. I feel like we can contain it to the parking lot that we have.
What was this prior to being a storage facility or whatever it was?
So it was the owner's mother's office. And I've tried to get from him, why would she need something that is set up as a banquet hall for an office? But it was just convenience of where she lived, and it was a great price, I guess. But yeah, she used it for an office. But before that, it was the B&B banquet hall.
It was what, I'm sorry?
B&B banquet hall. I don't know the years of that.
Okay. Guys got anything? Okay, all right, I guess we're done. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this? Well, so are we doing this one by one, or how are you wanting to do this? Because
I think you should be able to do it all in one, but I would say that for clarity for everyone, if there's anybody who wants to speak during the public hearing, after they say their name and address, they should indicate whether they're speaking on all of everything in the petition or something specific.
okay. All right, so is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition or petitions? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Anybody that would like to speak against these petitions, please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Perfect. Public portion is now closed. All right, so let's. Oh, yeah, well, yeah, everybody's got a letter. You guys all got a copy of this, correct? Okay. All right, so let's be clear when we're gonna make our motions here, because staff there's written commitments on multiple petitions that staff is wanting, and it's all contingent on town approval
Of the special exception.
of the special exception. So,
But are we voting on whether we
Okay, so.
how we recommend it
so
to Osceola?
There's a number of different things happening here.
Right.
The first one will be, you will need to vote to send the special exception with favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation to the Osceola Town Council. Then there are 8 separate variances, some of which staff has recommended conditions on, some of which staff has recommended amendments on, that I would suggest all be dealt with separately.
Interesting.
So we're going to need at least 8 motions.
I didn't get past that there's
9.
actually 3 choices for
9
the special
motions.
use recommendation, yeah?
Yes. There's favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation. Your rules require you start with either favorable or unfavorable, and only until both of those have failed do you get to move on to no recommendation.
Huh, so we can't lead off with that?
Correct.
We can't kick it to Osceola, well,
At one time, the board was frequently sending things with no recommendation to the point that it was getting a little silly. So you amended your rules to prevent that from happening unless you had no other choice.
Prior to that, I did fail to mention the letter of remonstrance that you all have from a neighbor. Looks like they're mainly concerned based on their experience with the previous banquet hall in terms of loud noise, trash, music, overflow, and parking. So
okay,
you have
but
a
that would
copy
have
of
been
that.
like 20 years ago?
No one has a clear idea on when this existed. I don't think it was that far back,
But we
but
can negate with the conditions that we apply by the hours of operation, because this is talking about later in the evening.
Sure.
As well as the parking.
Yeah.
So I've asked, just so you guys are clear on everything when you're ready to vote, that DJ ask the staff for each separate thing to kind of give you a short summary of what their recommended course of action was for it. So when he's ready to ask for a motion on the special use, he'll ask staff to say, what was your recommendation for the special use specifically? And then you can
I am
make your
fascinated,
motions.
though, that we have to go through the process of either recommending it or not coming to a consensus on either of those when the town has no opinion,
Well, the town gets their shot after you send your recommendation to them.
I suppose.
That's came to us first.
So,
Oh.
on the special use, you're recommending denial, correct?
correct.
Yes.
Well, unfavorable.
Unfavorable
Or unfavorable,
recommendation.
I'm sorry, yeah, denial.
And they also requested that if you decide to send it with a favorable, that you recommend certain commitments.
Yeah.
That's correct.
And those certain commitments were?
Subject to written commitment,
Written commitment restricting it to 60 guests per event, and
That was 660.
60.
yes.
Yeah.
And restricted hours. If you think what's being proposed in this rental contract is reasonable, then we can go with those.
All right.
Sorry, in the, where's the hour mentioned?
I apologize, I think that was an updated version.
So it's
You would very much like.
Just the first page of the contract, I made a copy of it.
So Sunday 9 to 9, Friday and Saturday 9 to 11, Monday through Thursday 9 to 9. I gave it to them.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Okay. Say anything about number of guests? So no blowout quinceañeras till 3 in the morning?
Right, so if you were to recommend favorably, we would request that you do that on the condition of a written commitment, restricting it to 60 guests, and the hours as reflected in that lease agreement.
Lance, can I see that?
Yeah.
Or, sorry, Donnie, you got
No,
it?
you're good, you're good.
That's the highlighted.
For clarification, you all are making a recommendation of the special use with the recommended commitments that then can be altered
By the town?
by the town, correct? It's not the final stop here.
Okay. So-
For written commitments that are specific to the special use.
As well as the variances, or just the special use?
This is just a special.
The special
I
use
understand.
and anything associated with the special use specifically,
By itself?
final say is the town's
Right.
entirely.
So is there any reason we couldn't have the rental contract specifics be the written commitment, be the conditions?
For
Or-
the variances?
No, for the special use recommendation.
It
I mean,
would-
we're trying to pull.
If the way that you want to say it is the number of people and hours stated in the contract provided to us today, there's no reason you couldn't, but the written commitment itself, it wouldn't make sense to put the contract in that, because that would be like several pages and written commitments get recorded.
Okay, so the only thing we're concerned about is amount of people and hours? Are those the only issues?
I would also argue parking.
Well, and that's, it sounds like the argument is that.
Well, of
if
what
they-
staff requested, the staff's request for written commitments related to the special use were only number of people and hours.
That's correct.
Right, but I would
You
also
can-
add parking as a written commitment.
Which is
That
fine.
they are only to be parked in designated areas marked by the event area. So they couldn't park on neighborhood streets or in the park across the street, even though it's a public lot. What's designated for their events is where they ought to park. Makes sense.
Okay. So let's, has anybody got a motion on the special use
Recommendation.
recommendation? And then we'll add the written commitments and then whatever else you decide that you're going to add at the motion.
The written commitments need to be part of the motion, don't they?
Correct.
They would be part of the motion. Whoever makes the motion gets to say, these are the subject to whatever written commitments or whatever that they want to put in their motion.
But DJ, did you have a question or what were you?
Well, I just want to be super clear about how we're going to do this.
Okay.
Okay, I think, Lance Roush, I would like to make a motion that we send this with a favorable recommendation to the town of Osceola with the written commitments, subject to the limit on the amount of people and the hours stated in the rental agreement that was shown to us today. But I'm stopping there because I'm unclear on whether the town would allow street parking or not. And that's something that they can handle or not handle going forward, because I think the number of people addresses for the most part, the parking issue. If not, the town will handle it.
So your motion is favorable recommendation, subject to the written commitments of the contract provided today?
And,
The number of people and the hours of operation in the contract that was provided
yes,
today.
the number of people and the hours of operation.
Donnie Ritzman, I'll second.
Just feel like an island there.
Okay.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes?
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
So I am going to be the island here, just because I think there's a lot of questions that I wish the town was here to be able to go over. I'm going to say no, but based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, will send a favorable recommendation subject to the written commitments of the contract provided for the number of people and hours of operation, and will issue written findings of the facts.
Beautiful.
Okay, so that's the special use. Now we have 8 more variances to go through.
Okay. This is the first set of variances, 1 through 3. These are for the rear setback of the existing building and the 2 front setbacks of the existing parking area. Staff recommends approval of all 3 of these variances on the condition that the special exception use is granted by the town council.
Can we lump them?
1, 2, 3.
Whatever, you could lump all 8 of them together if you
Yeah.
wanted to, but
Don't give them ideas.
Going by subject matter.
But if we're correct, though, we could do 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
7.
If the
Yeah.
treatment will
6,
be
7.
identical, you can do them together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do we want Sean to go through the rest of them, or?
I think it would probably be easier on you if you stop here.
Okay. Just, well, I mean, if he's going to say the same thing, multiple times, that's what I was,
Well, I don't
Well,
think
they
you will.
differ
Okay.
in
I grouped them
topic.
based on recommendation.
Okay.
so-
Okay, so if you don't agree with 1, 2, and 3,
Exactly.
then you need to pull out whichever one you're not going to make a motion on.
I'm going to take a step the other way. Lance Roush, I would like to make a motion that we accept variance items 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8 as written, subject to
Approval of the special use.
by the town of Osceola.
Tom Byers, second.
Mr. Hawley?
If my arithmetic is correct, we are not touching 4, 5, and 6 on this proposal, right?
Correct.
Correct. His
My
motion was,
My answer is yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes?
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony.
nope, you get to wait to do that until we're done, remember?
Oh, Pete, okay.
I mean, unless you want to announce them all separately,
I would have
but
rather have just gotten it done, but we'll, okay.
Sean, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you
You
just.
re-hit 4, 5, and 6, please?
Yes. Okay. So for variance 4, staff is recommending an amended request for, to not provide type A perimeter landscaping along the west and north on the condition that 5 trees are planted elsewhere on the property, and again, that the town council approves the special exception use.
That was 4?
yes.
That was 4.
So the east you never cared about or something, or something?
The
changed?
east, they can provide it, so they don't need the variance for the east in staff's opinion.
Okay.
I'm not sure why, but there's like technically 3 requests in here, it looks like, for this one.
Right.
Yeah.
Why
What makes
would
it
you-
so, yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
What makes it so much harder just because of the streets?
Yeah,
Stuff's in the
that's-
way,
yeah.
not room?
The parking area goes all the way up to the right-of-way. There's no
Oh,
property there effectively, currently. That's not hard surface.
okay. Five?
All right, well, hold on a second. So
You should deal with
four-
this one by itself.
Yeah.
4, you support west and north property line, but condition is they have to plant 5 trees somewhere else on the property. The east is fine.
The east is fine.
Okay.
The east is fine in the sense of
It's got the.
staff
pro- it's
is
got
not
the-
recommending a variance approval for the east.
Correct.
Well, Sean, like, the north and west, is there not already a landscape?
That's in the
Phase?
right, it's in the right-of-way.
Sean's recommendation is trying to work with the petitioner to bring some landscaping to the site where feasible. All right? They
Okay.
can't meet the requirements per the ordinance, so.
The town is welcome to plant trees in their right-of-way.
Okay, so since 5 and 6 also have to do with landscaping, why can't we talk about those now? They're all sort of intertwined.
So let's handle 4 since.
I think
Well,
for the,
but-
I think for the minutes in the record, it would be clearer if we dealt with them separately.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, but,
It is my recommendation you should deal with them separately.
so that's the end of it?
Yes.
If the chairperson can make the
Let's-
decision,
All right,
but
let's just
That's
handle
fine.
them separately.
Okay.
She has the final word.
Well, yeah, okay.
All right, so, sorry, Bob.
Can I ask a question another way? What would off-street parking, screening, landscaping for an existing parking lot look like?
A compact row of shrubs between the parking area and the street.
Okay?
Is that not,
What would foundation landscaping look like?
I believe, and again, I mean, there's nowhere to put the foundation landscaping between the parking area and the building. That's why staff is recommending,
Because it's concrete right up to it?
yes.
Okay.
Sean, can you go back to the slide with number 4? What was your condition
Yes.
again?
Did you ask him what his recommendation is?
On this slide, because it stated it. It was on another slide that was not for this.
Oh, I got it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna need you to leave that up when I read off all of this.
That's fine. We'll go through all of them.
Is she good?
No.
We just got this and then another set.
Downey Ritz, I'll make a motion that we approve variance number 4 on the condition not to provide perimeter landscaping to the north and west, and the condition that the 5 other required trees are planted elsewhere on the property, and that the town council approves the special exception use.
Bob Hawley, second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes?
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. All right, number 5.
Okay, 5 and 6. To not provide foundation landscaping along the west and north facades, because as we said, it's hard surface to the building, and to not provide off-street parking, screening, landscaping for the existing parking lot. Staff recommends approval of these on the condition that written commitments are adopted for the hours of operation and for the maximum number of guests, which is consistent with the rental contract, as well as town council approval of the special exception use.
Donnie Ritzma, I'll make a motion that we approve variances 5 and 6 on the condition of the hours of operation as stated in the rental contract and the number of guests, again, as stated in the rental contract that we submit a favorable recommendation for, and also the approval of the town council of the special exception use.
Bob Hawley, second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. All right. So, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants variance 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8 based on the approval of the special exception use by the Town Council of Osceola. Good?
That's correct.
All right. I have to read this every time, based on the, yes, all right. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants variance number 4. Well, let's see, base variance, not, with the special, or I'm sorry. The grants the variance to not provide perimeter landscaping to the north and west on the condition that there be 5 required trees are planted elsewhere on the property, and that the approval of the town council, or the approval of the special exception use by the town council. And then, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, approves the variance 5 and 6 based on the conditions of hours of operations are restricted via written commitment, and the town council approves the special exception use. And will issue written findings of the facts
And the number of guests.
Yes.
and number of guests, and will issue written findings of the facts,
Yes,
yes,
good job.
for the love.
You did it. Oh, yeah, and also sends the special exception use to the town council.
Oh, all right. So based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, will send a favorable recommendation, subject to the written commitments of the contract provided for the number of people and hours of operation to the Town Council
Of Osceola.
of Osceola. OC. And will issue written findings of the facts.
Good job. We did
Have a
it.
great day.
Good job on the PowerPoint, too.
Huh. Do you want this back, or do you want me to leave it in all my stuff that I turn into Shelley? Well, then take all this stuff, will you? Wow. There you go.
TJ's frustrated, he's throwing things.
All right.
Number
Perfect.
6.
Oh, did I knock that down? Sorry. Thank you.
Number 6.
Location, 14041 Esther Avenue. Owner, Industrial Equity Partners LLC, Encase Equity Partners LLC. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.380 sub C 6A to allow for an off-premise advertising sign with a setback of 0 foot from a limited access highway where a minimum of 50 feet would be required. Zoning I Industrial District, County.
Good afternoon, this is Carl, Area Plan Commission staff again. I will try to be faster. The petitioner in this case is looking to legalize an off-premise sign or billboard setback in order to convert it into a digital sign. The sign's located in the northeast corner of this highlighted property here. It was put there in 2008. The setback at the time, because this was the M manufacturing district, was 10 feet from the road. It appears that it met that setback after what may have been some additional right-of-way taking along Capitol Avenue there. The setback today is closer to 0 or very close to it. Here you can see the billboard as it's shown along Capitol Avenue. Note it's heavily wooded, and that's sort of an industrial area of it. This is looking south. The nearest residential area would be a few hundred feet away from here, behind that heavily wooded area, kind of on the right side of the picture. Here's a site plan submitted by Lamar, showing the distance from the road and the existing fence. Turning to state law criteria, the billboard will not have an adverse impact on the welfare of the community. Given the large amount of right-of-way afforded to Capitol Avenue, the 0-foot setback of the digital sign will still be significantly set back from the main roadway, again, as it's shown by their site plan here. Based on the requirements for advertising signs in the ordinance, the sign is required to have a lineal and radial distance away from the nearest residential lot line of 200 and 100 feet respectively. The sign is over 400 feet away using both measurements from the nearest residential lot line. So given this distance, combined with the willingness that the petitioners have shown to reduce the size of the sign, it should only be able to be noticed by drivers traveling along that Capitol Avenue corridor and not by any of the existing residential properties. Finally, the ordinance requires a 50-foot setback for these types of signs along a limited access highway, which Capitol Avenue is. If that was to be strictly enforced here, along with, as you've seen, the pretty expansive right-of-way afforded to Capitol Avenue, the effectiveness of the advertising sign would be significantly reduced. Staff does find this sufficient to be practical difficulty and recommends approval based on the condition that the size of the new electronic sign be reduced to a maximum of 400 square feet. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
You just mentioned a word, electronic.
Yes.
The sign that's there now is not?
Yeah, sorry. So the reason why they're looking to legalize this sign is to convert it to a digital or electronic sign.
Are there any set hours for that to be operational?
So the hours, per the ordinance, the hours would only have to be restricted if it was a certain amount of feet away from a residential parcel, and this one is far enough away that it doesn't need that restriction.
Thank you.
So you're recommending approval based on the condition that the new digital sign be reduced to 400 square feet?
Yes,
Okay.
to a maximum of 400 square feet.
Maximum of 400 feet. Okay, anybody got any questions? No? All right, is the petitioner present? Appreciate your patience, thank you. Name and address. You're telling me. Name and address in 10 minutes, please.
I'm David Herman with Lamar Advertising, 1335 Mishawaka Avenue, South Bend, Indiana. And so the existing sign is 672 square feet, and so we would be reducing it by a third. And staff did an excellent job in their report, and we agree with their findings and facts.
This is that sign right next to McGann's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Is there anything I can answer for anybody?
Guys, any questions? Is it gonna be just one of those multi?
Yeah, so a EMC or digital sign, they're all static. There's no motion. So it'd be internally illuminated versus externally illuminated. And so, yes, an ad would appear and then it would change and then another ad would appear, but it's instantaneous, so it's, you don't even notice.
Okay.
How many seconds or minutes are they?
There are 8 seconds between changes.
Really, 8 seconds? Wow. Pretty fast.
Anybody else? Nope.
And
All
you're
right.
in agreement of the condition that staff has proposed?
We are in agreement with what staff has proposed.
All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll turn it over to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Public portion is now closed.
I would make one change to staff's request for the condition. I would suggest that it be a written commitment on the maximum size of the sign. If it were not a written commitment that was recorded, then the condition would not be binding on any subsequent owners. So I would suggest that it be a written commitment rather than just merely a condition.
So based on a written commitment that the new digital sign be reduced to a maximum of 400 square feet.
Yes.
Is that okay with the,
You good? All right, thanks.
It was 400?
yeah, 400,
Yeah, so
Okay.
maximum.
Oh, right.
maximum 400?
All right, anybody got anything, or I'll take a motion? What? So is there, does he have a rebuttal? I mean, there was no public comment.
I believe they get the time, no matter whether there was rebuttal or not. It's just most people don't bother taking it, but.
Part of my 10 minutes?
Well, it's already closed.
Oh.
So,
No, the way that it's phrased, the petitioner may rebut the testimony of those against the proposal. The rebuttal is limited to 5 minutes, so there was nobody against it. So unless the board has questions for the petitioner, it appears they do not automatically get another piece of time now.
I'd kind of like to hear what he says. Is
I
that-
say, okay, my question is, what would you like to say?
Yeah, is that?
Okay.
That's fine.
Bingo. All right.
I just wanted to clarify that it's 400 square feet per face. It's a two-face sign, so it's not 200 square feet each side. Just because currently it's 672 each side, it'd be 400 square feet per side.
Oh, because it's back to back.
Because it's back to
Got
back.
it.
I just wanted clarification is all.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that, because I didn't know that, so. I thought it was only
Yeah,
one way.
that's important.
Yeah, I thought it was one way. I never paid attention, I've never
So you said
paid attention to that
the
sign.
third less is big.
Yeah, but it's back to back.
It is back to back, yes. Most of them aren't.
Yeah, you good?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Lance Roush, I would like to make a motion that we approve the variance as written with the written commitment that the square footage be restricted on each side to 400 feet,
Maximum of 400.
Maximum.
maximum of 400 feet,
Okay,
Square.
square feet, he said square feet.
He said it.
square feet,
Bob Hawley, second.
not cubic.
Cubic.
That'll be next,
Yeah, it will be.
three-dimensional.
All right, motion and second.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes,
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance based on the written commitment that the new digital sign be reduced to a maximum of 400 square feet per side, and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. Have a great day.
Petition number 7, location 60650 Cedar Road. Owner John E. and Jean C. Doctor. Requested action, variance from section 154.092 sub D to allow for a side yard or north setback of 15 feet where 30 feet would typically be required for replacement of an existing agricultural accessory building. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Good afternoon. This is Carl again. So this is a large agricultural property in Penn Township where the petitioner is looking to demolish and rebuild an existing accessory agricultural building. The building is directly west on this picture of the northernmost set of 3 grain silos shown there, and it comes just over 15 feet away from that north property line. Here you can see a view of those accessory buildings. The one that's set to be replaced is the one that you can see kind of through the trees there in the back. This is a view of the neighbor's property, which is itself, the structure is itself set pretty far back from that shared property line. Cedar Road is, the area around it is exceedingly agricultural in nature. This is the road looking around. You can see that those types of structures are common for the area. Here's the site plan provided showing the old structure that will be removed and a new building to be placed on the same concrete pad as the old structure. They're just tearing one down and putting a new one up on it. So looking at our state law criteria, the variance will not be injurious to the surrounding community's welfare. Any harmful effects of the building would be limited to the property to the north. But given this is a replacement of an existing building that has not received a complaint by that neighbor, it is unlikely that a new building will have a harmful effect on that property. Surrounding property values will continue to be conserved. As I said before, the area around Cedar Road is highly agricultural in nature, and renovating the existing accessory building will continue to preserve that character. And then finally, the building to the strict application of the terms of this chapter, if you can see on the aerial, there really isn't a way to build a new building sticking to that 30 feet without removing additional farm ground from productive capacity. So we do find that to be a practical difficulty, and staff does recommend approval of this variance. And I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody got anything? No?
They're going to build the building on the same foundation.
Yep.
So
That's
it's,
per the site plan.
it's
yes.
there now.
It's there now. It's just
Yeah.
coming down. Oops, I'm gonna go back up.
Thank you.
So it doesn't get grandfathered or anything to just rebuild?
No, unfortunately, because it's a agricultural building, if it were to be demolished, it needs to be technically built to
Re-permitted.
the conformance of the ordinance.
All right, thank you. Is the petitioner present?
Yes, he is.
Oh, Terry. All right, go ahead, Terry.
And I won't need all 10 minutes.
I appreciate that.
Carl did an excellent presentation there. It is an existing building, and it's in pretty sad shape, and they desire to tear it down and build another one at the exact same location. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I need your name and address, though.
Terry Lang at the Whiteman office, 1402 Mishawaka Avenue in South Bend.
Thank you. Anybody got anything?
No, sir.
No? All right, appreciate it. Thanks, Terry. We'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. Anybody that would like to speak against this petition, please step forward. See none, and there is no one else on Zoom. Public portion is now closed. Anybody got anything, or I'll take a motion?
Bob Hawley, I'll make a motion to accept the request for the variance at the Cedar Road property.
Lance Roush, second.
Motion and a second.
Suspense.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
What are we on? Number 8.
Location 2017 Coventry Trail. Owner Holly Curley and David Rogers. Requested action, variance from section 154.070 sub C 1D 1B to allow for a 6-foot ornamental fence with greater than 70% open space in the front north yard of a residential development where a maximum or 4-foot would be permitted. Zoning R2 Residential District, County.
Good afternoon. So this request comes from the new London Lake condominiums. They're seeking to replace their existing ornamental fence that's located along the north side of the development, abutting Bulla Road. The development is located just west of Ironwood Road, and it has another multifamily development. I'm not sure if they're condos or just apartments, but abutting north across Bulla. Staff does recommend approval of the requested variance. The following images are pictures of the current fence. As you can see, it's ornamental in nature, and they're looking to replace that. Note the grade of where the fence sits is slightly lower than the road. I'm not sure if it really comes through in the pictures, but there's a pretty significant hill there. This is a site plan. Again, the only portion of the fence being requested today is that northern one abutting Bulla Road. So the fence will not be injurious to the public. Given the fence will be ornamental and mostly open, it shouldn't cause any sight issues for drivers pulling into and out of Bulla Road. It also will not significantly affect nearby property values. As I said before, it abuts another multifamily development, and it is in character for the area. Additionally, the ornamental nature of the fence is more aesthetically pleasing than the privacy alternative. And then finally, staff does find there to be practical difficulties in this case. The grade of the road means that a 4-foot fence, which would be permitted by the ordinance, would be significantly shorter than 4 foot tall as viewed from the road. And it would also prevent the petitioner from making repairs to the existing fence structure, which again is, as it stands today, higher than what would be permitted by the ordinance. Staff does recommend approval, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
So it's just the north along Bulla?
That was what was shown to us, yeah.
And it's the same fence that's around the entire property, isn't it? Around Martins and Ironwood and everything else?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Is the petitioner present? Appreciate your patience, thank you. Name and address in 10 minutes.
David Rogers, 17601 Bulla Road, South Bend. I'm the property manager and maintenance for New London Lake Condos. We are looking to replace that 40-year-old chain link wooden fence with a black aluminum fencing, not a privacy fence, just a more decoration and funnels traffic through the main entranceway. It's really all we're looking to have approved.
So you're gonna upgrade the fence
Yes,
from what it is now?
yes.
All right. You guys got any questions? Anything else to add?
No?
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. Name and address, and then you got 5 minutes.
Terry Sigelski, 2005 Waterview Court, Unit B as in boy. My wife Sheila and I have lived there for 2.5 years this time. We previously lived there before. The photos, thank you for the staff report, by the way. I thought it was well done. The photos do show the fence in question, which is being, which we're requesting to be approved. What the photos do not show is an adjacent county-owned fence, which is already 6 feet, is poorly maintained, and I'll speak to that in a moment. Over 20 years ago, when the county took ownership of the retention pond at the corner of Bulla and Ironwood Roads, which is immediately adjacent to New London Lake and immediately adjacent to the fence, which is being considered for replacement, the county has done minimal maintenance on the property, which is evident by the existing conditions and the photos that I took, and I have them to submit if you would like. In fact, the county-owned lawn that is mowed on a regular basis is done so by the New London Lake property manager, David, at our cost, since the county refuses to maintain its own property. The refusal of maintenance by the county poses a safety risk for drivers attempting to pull onto Ironwood from Bulla Road. This lack of maintenance adversely affects our property values, but that's a discussion for another time. The point in question is the replacement of an existing 6-foot fence, which has been in place for over 40 years and is immediately adjacent to an existing 6-foot county-owned fence. I do not see the point of turning down the requested replacement of the existing fence when the county already has a 6-foot fence immediately adjacent to the new London Lake fence, which is maintained better than the county-owned fence. As a result, I, along with the previously submitted letter from at least one other new London Lake owner that I know of in support of the fence replacement, I expect approval of replacement of the existing new London Lake fence, and I appreciate your efforts today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Appreciate your patience. Anybody got any questions? No? Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Just nobody on Zoom. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this petition? And that's not funny. All right, and there's nobody on Zoom. Public portion's closed. You guys got anything else, or I'll take a motion?
Tom Byers, I move for approval as presented.
Bob Hawley, second.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants you variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you, appreciate it. All right, number 9.
Location 52500 Snowberry Road. Owner James P. and Joan M. Corman. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.335 sub B to not provide off-street parking area screening landscaping where it would be required along the north and west ends of the of a parking area. And variance number 2 from section 154.419 sub B to allow a gravel off-street parking area where asphalt, concrete, or other durable hard surface is required for a private park. Zoning A Agricultural District, County.
Good afternoon, Sean Klein, Area Plan Commission staff. So the petitioner would like to develop a private park at the Honeysuckle Solar Project. This would be a park to allow the public to see the solar project, learn about the project, learn about solar energy in general. Staff recommends approval of the variances. We find that the parking area screening landscaping is not necessary, as the parking area will be set back at least 88 feet from any public rights-of-way. Furthermore, there's really nothing in the area that would benefit from that screening. It's all agricultural uses or mostly portions of the new solar farm. Here's what the property looks like currently. So there are some panels to the north. Here is the site plan submitted. Turning to the state law criteria, we find that the approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. We do request that the variances be conditioned on the first 50 feet of the drive being paved back from the right-of-way. This will protect the right-of-way from any sort of gravel, dirt, dust, et cetera. But with that in place, we don't think that it'll be injurious to the public in any way. We feel that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Once again, everything in the area is agricultural or solar energy generation. Furthermore, the use is analogous to agri-tourism, which does not require paved parking. And the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in that they would require pavement and screening landscaping that is unnecessary under the circumstances and would not be required under agritourism, which is an analogous use within the A agricultural district. So staff recommends approval of the two variances on the condition that pavement be provided within the first 50 feet of the drive, which is consistent with the agritourism development standard as well as the solar energy standard. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. You guys got any questions?
No.
No. All right.
Not,
Name and address in 10 minutes. Thanks for your patience. Appreciate it.
My name is Adam McClellan. I am representing Lightsource BP, the developer of the Honeysuckle Solar Project. My address is 2017 Paul Quinn, Houston, Texas. We're really proud of the Honeysuckle project, and we are trying to, with this park, make it our flagship project here in the Midwest. And so part of that is creating this park so that we can share it with the community and educate people about solar. So I have a couple concept pictures that I'll just run through real quickly. Here's this first slide is just the paths and a picture of the signage that we'll have to kind of explain different aspects of solar. Here we have an overview, bird's eye view of the park. You can see it's kind of integrated in with the panels. This is of the parking lot where we're asking for the variances with the gravel and the screening. Here is the entrance to the park, which will be fenced in. An outdoor classroom facing the panels to teach people more about solar. And then what we submitted as our variance request. That's all I got. Happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any kind of issue with the first 50 feet being paved?
No, that's part of our plan.
Okay. I got nothing. You guys got anything? All right. Thanks again. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you, of course.
All right, we open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. There's nobody on Zoom. Anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. And nobody on Zoom. Public portion is now closed. Anybody got anything else, or I'll take a motion?
Tom Byers, move for approval, provided the first 50 feet of the driveway is paved.
Bob Holly, second.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance with the condition that the first 50 feet of the drive being paved, and will issue written findings of the facts. Thanks, guys. All right. Now we got finding of the facts.
Bob Holly, I'll make a motion that we approve the findings of the facts for the Wednesday, July the 12th, 2023 Area Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Diner Ritzma, second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Minutes?
Donnie's good, I'm good.
So you're waiting for me as quality control?
Yep.
These are minutes from June 14th.
You all should be looking at it too.
Bob Holly, I'll make a motion we approve the minutes as presented for the Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Motion?
Sid Schaefer, I'll second.
See? You ready?
No, he didn't.
I thought he made a motion.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right.
Nap time.
one thing left.
Other.
Don't have anything else.
I just want to tell you guys, you did a great job on some of the really hard petitions today at saying your reasons for why you were voting the way you were and making your motions very clear, so thank you very much for that.
Are we still recording?
Yes, we are.
You took
Not
the words
adjourned
out
yet.
of my mouth, so, yes, you guys did a great job today. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, the gentleman who's trying to escape is Tom Byers, our new board member. I don't know if you all met him prior to the meeting today. Tom,
I wasn't escaping, I just, last time I'm gonna drink a cup of coffee before I come.
Hold on, we didn't adjourn yet.
Is that a motion,
Sit
Tom?
down.
Is that a motion? Come on, I had to go too.
All right, we got a motion.
Second.
A second.
Aye.
yes, I know, I was getting to her, but
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right,
guess
all
you're in
opposed?
Who seconded the motion? Donnie?
Donnie, yes. Yes, the motion was definitely made on the move.